What's the weather really like here in Boise, Idaho? Well, let's find out. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Summer Aston. I'm a realtor with Silver Creek Realty Group in the beautiful Boise, Idaho area. And if you want to see more videos like this, all about living in Boise and Boise real estate, then please consider subscribing because I make new videos every week and you're not going to want to miss them. So the first question I have out-of-state clients ask me is, what is the weather really like in Boise, Idaho? Of course, the answer to that question is kind of subjective based on where you're moving here from. I moved here from California over 20 years ago, and while it was a little bit of an adjustment to me at first, I quickly learned to love the weather patterns here. I'm going to give you a practical overview of the weather here, something that's useful to you beyond just those numbers that you can find online. And make sure you stay tuned till the end because I'll give you my very honest opinion of what winter is really like here in Boise. The first thing to keep in mind about the weather in Boise is it's driven by the fact that we are really in a desert climate. It's pretty dry here, and the average rainfall is less than 12 inches a year. We rarely get humid days, so any cold and hot days we have here are what you would consider a dry cold or a dry heat. So let's talk about those average temperatures for the cold season. The cold season is going to run about from the end of October until the end of March. You can expect an average high of around 47 degrees and an average low in the 20s. Of course, those are averages. It can be much warmer or it can be much colder. And the warm season is going to begin around the middle of June and extend through about the middle of September. The average high in the warm season is around 85 degrees with an average low of around 63 degrees Fahrenheit. And same thing, it can be much hotter or it can be cooler. Okay, now that we got those boring stats out of the way, let's move on to a practical look at the weather. My absolute favorite thing about the weather here in Boise is having 4 distinct seasons. Let's start with spring. Now, spring is always a beautiful time of year in Boise with all of the flowers coming back to life and the trees blooming. But a really exciting thing about spring here is on some days, you can wear clothes from all seasons of your wardrobe in one day. Spring in Boise is all about layering. You're going to wake up in the morning and it's going to be really chilly. Anywhere from the 20s in the mornings, maybe to the 40s. If you're lucky in the spring, maybe it'll be in the 50s in the morning. Either way, you're going to want to layer. You get on that cute spring jacket, and then a couple hours later when you come outside, it's warmed up 30 or 40 degrees. So it's maybe up to 60 degrees, so you put on your nice lightweight cardigan and you go inside. And you come outside and now it's 75 or 80 degrees, so you're going to need a t-shirt. And then you go back inside and you come back outside and a spring snowstorm decided to come. Don't worry, those spring snowstorms don't last very long, but it's kind of fun. They're just a few minutes, and you know that after you go back inside, you'll come back outside and you're going to have to take that jacket off to get your t-shirt back on because it's going to be 75 degrees again. So the first spring you live in Boise, you are going to think that it's still pretty cold. The sun is going to shine and it will be beautiful, but you're just going to wonder, when are the warm temperatures coming? Okay, so this is from the point of view of somebody who moved here from California. Now, if you moved here from someplace like Alaska, you may think that our spring is absolutely warm and delightful. But the first spring I was here, my friend had just moved here from Hawaii and we just could not wait for it to get hot. But you'll know you've truly settled into being a true Idahoan when those spring temperatures hit about 50 degrees and it's sunny and you're out there in your shorts and t-shirts. When Easter rolls around in the springtime, it can be pretty chilly or it can be really nice. It just depends on the year. We've had Easter egg hunts where it's 75 and beautiful outside, and we've even had Easter egg hunts with snow. Having snow at Easter is definitely the exception to the rule. Usually Easter is going to be pretty nice, maybe around 50 to 65 degrees. But in the spring in Boise, everything comes back to life. There are beautiful blue skies with big puffy clouds. The wildflowers start coming out on the foothills. Spring slowly changes into summer here. We kind of have quite a bit of temperature variances between spring and summer before summer really sets in. In June, the temperatures are pretty up and down. We can have highs in the 50s and we can have highs in the 90s. And with all those temperature variations, you can expect quite a few thunderstorms. Now, the thunderstorms here are not like the thunderstorms in Texas. The thunderstorms here just come rolling in very quickly. You'll feel the air change. You'll feel the wind pick up. Sometimes we have a little bit of hail. Only one time in 20 years did we have golf ball size hail. It's normally pea-sized hail. It lasts a few minutes, doesn't do any damage. And after a short while, the storm rolls out and the sun comes back out. And one awesome thing about the summer here that I like is it stays light until 10 o'clock at night. So you can really spend the entire day recreating and enjoying the beautiful outdoors here. Now the nights in the summer here cool off quite a bit. They'll go down to around 60 degrees. I lived in the Sacramento area during my teenage years, and the nights there in the summertime get very hot and stagnant, and we pretty much had to run our air conditioner all night long. Here in the summertime, even if we reach a 95-degree temperature in the day, in the night it's going to cool off enough that you can pretty much just open your windows and let the breeze cool your house off. And then we'll have a couple weeks in August where it's really hot. It doesn't last very long, and often it coincides with the fire season. So one thing to keep in mind is that the majority of the state of Idaho is covered in wilderness area. And if that wilderness area catches on fire, they usually let it burn. And quite often that smoke will come down and settle in the Treasure Valley. So there have been many Augusts that we have been here where it's 100 degrees and the sky is kind of orange and there's smoke sitting in here. But don't worry, that doesn't last for long, and the weather changes and the smoke will clear right out. Now the kids go back to school here usually around the end of August. It's still pretty warm by then, but they only have a few weeks of really warm weather when school starts before it starts to change into fall. Now, as much as I love the warm weather, fall is probably my favorite season here. The beginning of fall, September and October, we usually have 6 weeks of absolutely beautiful 70 to 80 degree weather, and the nights are getting cooler. And you can just feel that crisp, cool energy in the air at night, and you just know that fall is coming. So fall usually comes in stages here. It'll be pretty warm, and then you'll find yourself needing to cozy up in a sweater in the evenings. So there's usually a teaser fall here, which means the temperatures will drop and you'll think, okay, fall is here, winter is coming. That'll last about a week, and then all of a sudden it gets warm again. And you wonder whether or not you should go buy pumpkins because you don't want them to rot on your front porch. And then real fall kind of sets in all of a sudden. That usually happens right around Halloween time, and you'll find yourself getting out your fall jacket. And your fall jacket's not the same as your winter jacket. So by the time Halloween comes, the leaves have all started to change colors. They're falling off the trees. The corn has changed, getting ready to go to those corn mazes, getting ready to go to the pumpkin patch. Sometimes we've gone to the pumpkin patch and it's warm. The kids are wearing shorts and t-shirts. Other times we've gone and everybody's bundled up. But usually by Halloween, it's pretty mild. The highs when you go trick-or-treating are going to be anywhere from 40 to 60 degrees. Now, the very first year we moved here almost 20 years ago, my daughter was 3 years old, we took her out to go trick-or-treating and it was 17 degrees. Welcome to Idaho. But I've never noticed it being that cold for trick-or-treating again since that one first fall that we lived here. Now, as fall gets closer into winter and we get closer to Thanksgiving, you'll find yourselves getting out a scarf and some gloves to stay warm if you're going to go walking outside. And Thanksgiving, like every other time of year here in Idaho, the temperatures are really going to fluctuate. I've noticed a pattern where generally Thanksgiving week is our first little bit of snow. But last Thanksgiving, I think it was around 60 degrees. I'd say most Thanksgivings are anywhere from 30 to 50 degrees for the high. So winter really comes right around the beginning of December. And this fall jacket, it's not going to cut it anymore. Yep, it's time to keep on that sweater and over it layer your extra thick winter coat. Now, as I said in the beginning, I will tell you my honest opinion of the winter here in Boise, but first let's talk a little bit about what it's like. Well, just like all the rest of the weather here in Idaho, you never quite know what you're going to get. This past winter was really nice. We almost had no snow at all, just a little bit here and there that always melted the next day. So we've had sunny, beautiful winters where the highs are in the 50s and the lows are in the 40s. But we've also had winters where you do not go outside unless you have on your hat, your gloves, and your scarf, and your thickest coat, your thickest socks, and your thickest waterproof snow boots. Now, usually the bitterly cold weather comes in January and it'll stay for a couple of weeks. And the bitterly cold weather is okay to handle as long as the sun stays out. What the worst part about winter here in Boise is if we get the inversion. The inversion is where the air kind of flips upside down. We get the cold air that sits in the valley and the warm air that goes above the cloud layer. When that happens, the temperatures in the valley get colder and colder. It doesn't snow. It's just gray, and we'll have highs in the 10 and teens. Now, 1 year out of the 20 years that I've lived here, the inversion stuck around for several weeks. In general, it's just a couple of days and it comes and goes and it's no big deal. So what's the snow really like in Boise? Everybody always wants to know about the snow here. It's just like everything else with the weather here in Idaho. You never know. Of course, there was Snowmageddon, the winter we had here a few years ago, which was the most snow on record, and many people had just moved here from out of state. They were quite surprised when it started snowing in November, and it basically didn't stop until the end of March. We had piles of snow everywhere. We had school closures for a couple of weeks. The neighborhoods had icy roads with ruts in them, like wagon wheels that you had to get the tires of your car into, or you couldn't drive in your neighborhood. You had to have four-wheel drive or you weren't going to be leaving your neighborhood. Okay, hopefully that didn't scare you because that was a total exception to the rule. So the snow normally here in Boise is it will snow a few inches overnight. The next day, everybody enjoys it, runs out and goes sledding. We rarely have snow days where the kids don't go to school. And then the snow melts off in the next day or two, or even within a couple of hours. I would say more often than not, we never even actually get out our snow shovel. But maybe once a winter, it snows enough that we need the snow shovel. Another question I get is, are you going to need an all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive vehicle here? Generally in Boise, you don't need all-wheel drive. Your cars are going to get you around town just fine. If you find yourself going up to the mountains a lot to go snowboarding or to go snowmobiling, then yes, you are going to want to get an all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive vehicle. Most families here have one all-wheel drive vehicle just in case they need it, and the rest are not all-wheel drive. One other thing you need to be aware of the winter here is that the days are very short. The sun isn't going to come up until around 8 o'clock in the morning and it goes down around 4:30. So if your kid has a long day at school with after-school activities, they might get on the bus in the dark and they might come home in the dark. And I will give you my very honest opinion about the winter here in Boise. As I said before, the first couple winters here were really hard for me to get used to. I just couldn't stop thinking about when the warm weather was coming again. Now that I've lived here 20 years, I've just gotten a lot more used to the weather patterns here. And I've also learned how to dress for the winter here. I think the first couple winters I lived here, I just didn't even know how to dress warm enough. I personally still feel like the winters are long. For me, I wish they would get warmer a little bit earlier. I would love to see those 80-degree temperatures come like in February. But is it doable? Yes, it's absolutely doable. The overall benefits to living in Boise and the lifestyle of living in Boise and the cost of living in Boise far, far outweigh any negatives that come with the winter. Now, I know many people that have moved here from out of state. When they come from colder climates, they absolutely love Boise. It is a respite for them from the very cold winters they're used to. And the people that move here from warmer climates usually adapt and start to learn loving the 4 distinct seasons. I've got to be honest, I do know some people that have moved here from warmer climates that try to make it here a couple of years and then they say they just can't stand it and they leave. That is definitely the exception to the rule. And in general, I think the winters here in Boise are beautiful, as long as we don't get that nasty inversion. So there it is, my overview of what the weather is really like here in Boise, Idaho from a practical point of view. I hope you found it useful. If you want to see more videos all about living in Boise, Idaho and real estate here, then please consider subscribing, give this video a thumbs up, and leave a comment down below if you have any questions. And you might want to consider checking out this video if you want to check out more about living here in Boise. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.